Welcome to Yupin Stock Trend Prediction channel. So in this video, I talk about the predicted high and low for the stock price, Tesla stock price for early next week and next week. In this video, I'll also talk about some tips about how to interpret this kind of trend lines and prediction, and so you will know when to buy and when to sell, and if it will increase or decrease in this time frame. So that will make you have a better chance to success and make more profit and also minimize the risk. So because you will know if it will increase or decrease and how high it will possibly go and how low it will possibly drop. So this is a Tesla daily chart. So that means if you select a daily chart, each vertical line is 1 day's fluctuation price, and this trend lines, the tips of this trend lines are the predicted target high and target low for the different levels. So it depends on how it opened, and then if it opened below this middle yellow trend line, generally it will have a trend and a tendency to drop it down to this blue trend line, and may even drop it down to this middle blue trend line, and depends on if it still have a very good increasing momentum, it may drop it down to this top blue trend line and then still have a tendency to try to increase. So if it opened close to this blue trend line, so generally it will have a good tendency to increase, and it will fluctuate between this kind of a blue trend line and yellow trend line. So, and this is a daily chart. Early next week, the fluctuation range is at least to cover this the middle yellow trend line, $245.8, and this top blue trend line, $241.5. So it depends on it will still have a good increase in momentum. It may still have a tendency to drop it down to this middle blue trend line. That's middle blue trend line is about $239.8. So if it dropped down to this blue trend line, it still have a good buying price. So, and it may have a tendency trying to reach to this $250, but it's not guaranteed, but it still have a possibility. So if we switch to weekly chart, and the weekly next week, the fluctuation range is expected to between this blue trend line is about $238, and the top trend line is about $250.8. So its fluctuation range is between this range, between this top yellow trend line and this top or medium blue trend lines. Depends on how it will open. If it's opened below this middle yellow trend line, $246.3, so it may not exactly go above to reach this top yellow trend line. It will drop it down and may even reach the bottom of the middle blue trend line. So depends on how it goes and how it opened. So this is a kind of a big time frames fluctuation. So if you switch to monitor the small charts like 60 minutes or 15 minutes or even 5 minutes chart, then you will exactly know how it will go and how high and how low it will go, and if it will start to increase or decrease. Let me explain it to you, and also let's use the same tips so you can make a better decision to sell and buy at a good price, and then start to make more profit and reduce risk. So if we switch to 15 minutes chart, for example, for 15 minutes charts, if this is including the aftermarket data, these lines are aftermarket. So if it dropped below the bottom blue trend line, that means it have a very strong decreasing momentum. Generally, this kind of whole 15 minutes will continue to drop. So when it opened below or on this middle yellow trend line, generally it will start to decrease, at least to decrease to this bottom blue trend line. So in this bar, 15 minutes is a very strong decreasing bar. So you see for this, if it opened a little bit above or at or close this blue trend line, generally this 15 minutes will continue to increase. For example, this is open here and closed here, so this 15 minutes is increase. And for example, for this one, opened at or below this bottom blue yellow trend line or below this middle yellow trend line, it will go down, drop down to find this blue trend line support. So it's still a decreasing 15 minutes. And even for this one, for this 15 minutes, when it opened below this bottom yellow trend line, is still also decrease. When it decreases to this blue trend line and increase a little bit. So basically, so this one, for example, it opened here, opened close to this blue trend line and started to increase. And when it increase, even break through this top yellow trend line, and there's another layer of top level, that's a yellow dot. When it reaches to the yellow dot, then definitely it means it reaches to the maximum or high for this whole 15 minutes. So it started to drop, and even dropped down below to this bottom blue trend line. So drop it down to this. So generally drop it down below this blue dot, it means it's a kind of another level of minimum price, and they still have a chance to go up. So it's just a fluctuate. And generally all this kind of 15 minutes are enclosed among this trend lines with just a very small percentage of 15 minutes or time frame where may break through this top yellow trend line or break off this bottom blue trend line. And for example, this is opened below this middle yellow trend line, so even though it increased a little bit, but it will still go down, totally go down, and go down to this bottom blue trend line and touch this bottom dot and started to increase a little bit. So this one increased close to this yellow blue trend line, so it will have a tendency to increase to find the yellow trend line, and then after it reaches to this yellow trend line, that's a resistance line, it will still go down to this blue trend line and touch this blue trend line. So all this, you see all these trend lines are predicted trend lines. That means all this trend line and this predicted target high and target low are already generated before even this time frame start. So that means it generated and finalized after the previous time frame is completed. So when this current time frame is start, and then you know all these different levels, and then it's just fluctuated between these trend lines, so you will get a better idea about how high it will go and how low it will go. In addition, if you know this kind of tips I just told you, how to interpret the increasing or decreasing trend based on the opening price and location, and so you will know, basically you will know if it will increase or decrease, and how high it will increase or how low it will drop. So you will get a better chance to sell and buy even for day trade or middle or long-term investment. So you will get a better chance to make more profit and also reduce more risk. Reduce risk. So for example, for this increasing trend, continuously increasing but increasing slowly, and even also have some kind of fluctuation, and you see each 15 minutes apart, and when it opened above this bottom yellow trend line, is still a good sign. That means it has very strong increasing momentum opened above this bottom yellow trend line, so it will increase and continuous increase. You see when it increase, almost touch the top yellow trend line, and it will still decrease a little bit. And the next time frame, when it opened here, still above this bottom yellow trend line, it will still have an increasing trend to this top yellow trend line, and this one even increases to this dot. When it reaches to this dot, and typically you should sell it and for a short time. And the next time frame, it opened below this middle yellow trend line and started to decrease to this bottom blue trend line. So even for this kind of decreasing trend process, when it opened below this blue yellow trend line, below this middle yellow trend line, or bottom trend line, yellow trend line, then it will drop down to this bottom blue trend line. So because it also have a decreasing trend, you see these trend lines are decreasing, and so you see this new time 15 minutes after it opened below this bottom yellow trend line, even though it pushed up a little bit, but just can't break off this middle yellow trend line, and then it will start to decrease all the way down, decrease to this bottom blue trend line. So that's even for the decreasing process. And for this time frame, so because it dropped down to this bottom blue trend line, generally means this is the low price for this current time frame. So it's a relatively low price. It's relatively a good price if you are doing the day trade or short-term investment. And the next 15 minutes, and it opened around this blue trend line, and then that means it will have an increasing trend, and then it will start to increase to find the yellow trend line, to find the resistance level. So basically they just fluctuate between this kind of resistance line and the support line. And if it's this bar increased from the bottom, the blue line, and increased and break through this yellow dot, that means it have a very strong increasing momentum, and then it will continue to increase for the whole 15 minutes up to this point, this price. So this kind of trend typically happened at the around 9:30 or to 10 o'clock, so in early morning for the when the market is just start. So generally for most of the time frames, it's just fluctuate between among these time trend lines. So even for 5 minutes chart, you can still use the same tips to interpret how it will go, how high and how low it will fluctuate, and if it will increase or if it will decrease for each 5 minutes. For example, if it opened below this yellow trend line, and after it reaches up to this middle yellow trend line, it will start to drop it down to this bottom blue trend line. So then you will know this 5 minutes is a decreasing 5 minutes. And for this one opened relatively above this middle yellow trend line, that means it have a very strong increase in momentum, so it will have a tendency to increase a little bit more. So but it still have a tendency also to drop it down to this bottom blue trend line. So generally when it reaches to this kind of blue trend line, generally you will still have a chance to make money, because later on it may still start to increase. So even for this kind of 5 minutes, each 5 minutes are still fluctuate among these trend lines. For example, this 5 minutes opened below this middle yellow trend line, this bar will be a decreasing 5 minutes. So it decreases to this bottom blue trend line, and next time 5 minutes is decrease a little bit more, and when it decreases to this middle middle blue trend line generally means a low price region. So next 5 minutes it opened exactly around this yellow trend line, so it's 2 lines above, so it means it still have a good increasing trend, increasing momentum, and then this 5 minutes all the way increased up to this dot. You will know how it will move even for 5 minutes, and for this kind of 5 minutes opened around this yellow trend line, and it will try to drop down to find this blue trend line, and for this 5 minutes opened above this blue trend line generally means it have a good support, and we'll try to find the yellow trend line, and it's increasing 5 minutes, and this increasing 5 minutes it still have a very good increasing trend, and also increased or opened above this middle yellow trend line. Generally that means still have a good increasing momentum. Try to find the top yellow trend line. So even for this kind of 5 minutes, you can still interpret that. And for example, for this 5 minutes opened below this middle yellow trend line, it is decreasing down to this blue trend line. So generally for this kind of a Tesla stock price, 5 minutes fluctuation is about maybe like 50-60 cents up to $1. So if you have 500 shares, this kind of a fluctuation, if you know this kind of a fluctuation, then you will probably make about $200 or $300, or you can prevent this kind of $250 of loss. So if you know this kind of a trend, if it will decrease or if it will increase, or how high it will increase or how low it will increase, even for 5 minutes. And for example, for this kind of 5 minutes, when it opened below this yellow trend line, and it will drop down to find this blue trend line, and this one is the same thing, opened here among this yellow trend line, it will try to decrease to this blue trend line, and if it's opened above this bottom yellow trend line, generally it will increase. So it means it have a good increasing momentum. And for this bar, you see opened here and exceeded a little bit and still dropped down to this blue trend line, and for this one is dropped down even down to this blue trend line. So even for this 5 minutes and increased opened here, dropped all the way down to this blue trend line, and when it dropped down to this bottom blue trend line, it's generally it will have some kind of a reverse, and will start to turn direction a little bit and still fluctuate among this kind of trend lines. So even that's for 5 minutes of fluctuation, so you will know how important these trend lines are, because these trend lines are already generated and will not be changed. It's all stay there when this new or current time frame start. So basically you are just like you are trading stocks, just like playing a video game, and you know your price, your current price fluctuate up and down, and then when it touches a trend line or touches to the top or resistance or touches to the support, then you will get a better idea about if it will have a reversal price, if it will turn direction. So this is a 5 minutes chart. If I change it to 15 minutes chart, you see all this kind of fluctuation are basically also included among these trend lines, or for this kind of increasing process and the decreasing process. You use this kind of tips I just told you, basically you will interpret almost like 90% of increasing trend or decreasing trend. And there's a kind of 15 minutes chart. And if I switch it to 60 minutes chart, that's the same thing. So this kind of a trend line is awesome. It's basically it can capture all fluctuations in short time frame and also in big time frame. This is a 60 minutes chart, and you see for each, even for 60 minutes chart, for example, opened above this blue trend line, this whole 60 minutes will be increasing 60 minutes, so it will try to increase all the way up to this top yellow trend line. But among this during this process, there's still 15 minutes fluctuation, 5 minutes fluctuation. But if you know this kind of general trend, then you will know if you want to hold it for the whole 60 minutes, then you will have a better chance to know how high it will go, how low it will go, if it will increase or if it will decrease. For example, this 60 minutes close to this blue trend line, that means it have a good support. So the whole 60 minutes is increasing up to this dot. And for this opened below this bottom yellow trend line, generally this 60 minutes will try to find the bottom trend line. But since it's still relatively have a continuation, when it started to increase, then when it reaches increase up to this middle yellow trend line, then you will know generally it's very close to the high or maximum price for the current 60 minutes. So you will know when to sell your stocks. And for this kind of 60 minutes, when it opened above this dot, that means it has a very strong increasing momentum. Then it will break through and will still continue to increase. So this is just a kind of exception that it will fluctuate outside of this range. So that's just happened for very, very few cases. Generally, it fluctuates among these trend lines. So this is a 60 minutes chart. And even for daily chart, you see daily chart, that's still same thing. And that's a daily chart. I will give you an overview. So daily chart, the daily fluctuation are also enclosed among these trend lines. And even for weekly chart and the monthly chart, there's still these trend lines are still having this kind of functions. So you can use this kind of tips to interpret this fluctuation and trend. Even for this weekly chart, all this kind of fluctuation are also included among these trend lines. So use the same tips. You can interpret if this week will increase and will have a higher price. For example, this one is opened a little bit below this bottom yellow trend line, so it will decrease to this blue trend line, so it will have a good support, but then it will still increase and even increase up to this top yellow trend line. And when it has a very strong increasing momentum, even increased up to this yellow dot. So yellow dot typically represent the high, the last defense of high, so it will start to decrease. And then the next week it opened below this yellow trend line, middle yellow trend line. Generally it will decrease, but this week it's just fluctuate among these lines. So many people don't want to sell it, so it didn't exactly dropped down to this blue trend line, but after several weeks it still dropped down to this blue trend line. So even for weeks, for example, for this week, it opened below this middle yellow trend line, so it's not a good sign. So, and also it dropped down from this dot, from this high. So generally this week will continue to drop down even to this bottom blue trend line, up down to this kind of a dot, another level of dot. That means the low price. And when the next week opened close to this bottom blue trend line, that's a very good support. And then this week continues to increase, try to find this yellow trend line. It's a kind of a resistance level. And then the next week is a kind of a continuation of this kind of increasing trend. When it opened above this blue trend line, so it's still a good support and still try to increase up to this kind of upper level yellow trend line, and then it will start to decrease and continues to decrease down to this dot. So basically it's just fluctuate among these trend lines you see for this week, and opened below this middle yellow trend line, so generally it will decrease down to this blue trend line. So this week continues to drop, and even for this kind of a decreasing trend, continuous decreasing trend, when it opened below this kind of a blue trend line, that's also not a good sign. So when it opened below this blue trend line, it tries to increase, but the increasing momentum is relatively weak, so even increased up to a upper level blue trend line, so it's this kind of a blue trend line will still becomes a kind of resistance, so it will continue to drop even down to the blue dot. So you can use this kind of a trend, and you can interpret, and you will know if it will increase or if it will decrease, or how high it will increase and how low it will decrease. So even for a bigger time frame, that's for weekly chart. So weekly chart, and even for monthly chart, that's still same thing. Use a similar tips and a similar explanation. So if I switch to monthly chart, sometimes I also show some monthly chart. This kind of trend lines also generated even before the current month start, as long as the last month's time frame, last month is completed. So all these tips, just like these tips are already generated for the next month, but since the current month is not completed yet, so these tips will be changed, will be adjusted. But after the current month is completed, after the last day, then these tips are finalized, becomes will not be changed. So when the next month start, and all these tips will not be changed, this price will not be changed, that will becomes the target high and the target low, just like this kind of trend lines, target high and target low at a different level for the next month. So when the next month start, so for the monthly chart, all these fluctuations are also fluctuated among these trend lines. And also you can use the same tips to interpret this kind of a monthly chart. So basically you will know if this month will be increase or if this month will be decreasing. For example, when this month opened here below this middle yellow trend line, generally this month will have a decrease down to this kind of a blue trend line, and then it will, after it reaches to this bottom blue trend line like this point or this point, or bottom dot, generally that means a very good price to buy, and it will increase. It's a reversal point, reversal price, and it will turn direction. So, and after it dropped down to here, and then it started to increase up to this blue trend line, and this price opened this month opened below this middle yellow trend line, and then it will decrease down to this bottom blue trend line. So it's this also opened below this bottom yellow trend line. Is a kind of a resistance line, and then it will try to find a support, drop it down to this kind of a blue trend line. Blue trend line generally represents the support line. So this is a kind of a monthly chart, and all this monthly chart also monthly price also fluctuate among these trend lines. So basically you can use this kind of European stock trend prediction model and trend lines. You can predict and monitor, predict all fluctuations for small time frame, larger time frame, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 60 minutes, weekly, daily, monthly, and also that can be used for all stocks you choose. For example, HD, if I choose HD, this is a HD monthly chart. So this is a HD monthly chart. All this fluctuation it can be interpreted and predicted. and this is the monthly chart. If I switch to daily chart, just for example, that's a daily chart, you can all see, you see it's just fluctuate among this kind of trend lines, and this is the, and for this one it's opened much above this dot. That means it have a very strong increasing momentum. It's just jumped to a larger range. So this is the HD. So you can choose any stocks. For example, Costco. For example, AAPL. This is the Apple daily chart, and you can use the same tips to interpret that. For example, this is the decreasing for this day, and this is the increase, and this is when it opened on this dot, it will increase for this day. Okay, if you are interested in this kind of analysis and prediction, you are welcome to subscribe European Stock Trend Prediction channel or watch more video in YouTube.